Greetings, hello everybody of the internet. This is another SplattRCast. This time, Bryce joins us along with JP and Landon. So, Bryce, aka Shout It, Jay Parsons, and Landon TM, all from the eastern side. That's all who's available right now. I couldn't get anybody better. No Tarek on stream.
Unfortunate.
Yikes. I mean, anybody's better than JP, right?
I mean, the West team was practicing, though, which, I mean...
My introduction changes every goddamn time.
I'm going to start introducing you as, like, resident narwhal expert. Stuff like that.
Yes.
So, it is the 15th of January on recording of this. Tomorrow starts the first two minors for Katowice. How do you... Katowice?
Vice.
Katowice. Katowice.
EVP. EVP. Katowice.
So what we're going to do in this SplattRCast is we're going to take a look at both of the, what would you call them, tournaments? I guess they're qualifiers for the major. We're going to look at CIS first and EU and kind of give our thoughts and maybe make some predictions, that sort of thing. Just a little general talk around because that's what we do when we're bored. So first up, I'm going to put the CIS graphic up there, and everybody, you can go to your respective pages in your textbooks to look at the pages for that. So, Namiga Gaming, Team Spirit, Windstrike, Avangar, Runtime GG, which is C's, whatever they used to be called, I don't remember what it was, Simon Gaming, Pro 100, and Gambit. So that's your CIS minor.
Are you sure that's not...
What?
I don't know. But before we get serious, we take a moment to imagine. I found my favorite.
You're
cutting out a ton, JP.
I'm not trying to. I'm adjusting the blue snowball. So I want to take a minute before we get serious here to talk about how I found my new favorite player's name in Enigma, or whatever the hell they're called.
Namiga?
In Lollipop 21K.
Hell yeah, dude. Lollipop's like he's not a god. He's just a lollipop.
Okay. Before we get serious, I would also like to say that I'm very impressed that they fitted an R and a T into Runtime's logo. Like, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too easy.
I don't know what Simon's logo is, though. I'm very confused. It's like a G, but there's not a G in their name.
The Simon Gaming is there.
They're branded.
I still don't see the S.
The S is like, it's kind of like Singularity's S.
Yeah.
So it goes through the middle.
I'm proud of them.
I see it.
So obviously there's a couple more. There's some teams that are more established and there's some teams that are less established. I think Gambit, everybody kind of knows them, but this is the new roster with Axel and now Bondic. I guess that's actually also...
or Demasic.
Yeah. Gambit. I'm kind of surprised, but also not, that he wasn't there that long.
I think it was a stand-in, wasn't he?
I thought they had
signed him. Yeah.
They had listed he was a stand-in? Okay, so I must have misread that. But I actually thought that they had signed him, and then he was just gone. But yeah, so that's Doja, Mo or Mao, however you say his name.
Mo.
Your active roster is Doja, Mo, Mir, Axel, and Bondic. And Blade is a coach.
Yeah, and Blade. I'm not really excited about Gambit. I guess I haven't been over the last year.
I think they have a lot of talent, and I'm not sure if Bondic knows how to use it. Obviously, Dosha's legendary. Mo, talented player. I think Mir's very underrated. I don't know much about Axel, though.
It just seems that after that mate...
Jesus Christ.
He just dropped off.
And out, dude.
Okay, right. I'm switching mics.
JP fixed mic time. Now, my opinion.
Sure.
I gotta say, Mo's probably the best player on the team. Unfortunately, Mo is also very inconsistent, which is what made it. Like, I mean, as an opper, it's not a great thing to have.
Yeah.
This isn't a better game. I think that even the game that came around with Fitch right after Zeus left to go back to Navi, I still would think it would be more competitive, and I don't see them taking on a team like a Vanguard and winning that. I think that, they just have to get the luck of the draw and get some of these either new form teams or like a team like Namiga that I don't, or Seaman, one of these two teams that I don't really recognize anybody from, and they probably have a chance at one of those. But I think if you get like a Team Spirit or a Vanguard or even a Pro 100 and Windstrike, I mean, they seem outclassed here.
Yeah.
Don't count out Boomich, okay?
Yeah.
Windstrike's got a shot.
Yo,
See,
Boomich is legend, and if Boomich is still standing, they can win games.
I firmly believe that if Gambit wants to have any chance of going through, they need to really take a look at their roster. You have players like Mir, who I honestly think are very underrated. Ex-Vega player, back when Vega was just kind of a dark horse at the major, and I think his stats kind of prove that he's one of the players that, you know, prior to Chopper being the most annoying player in CIS region, Mir was one of those players that would, you know, dictate games. If you watched the major and you went back and you could see Mir kind of play his style and how he would, like, he's an entry fragger. His job is to go in there and get shit done.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, having a good well veteran player like Dosha and an inconsistent Opper and Mo, you need to be able to balance out with a player like Mir to run in there and get shit done, set shit up for Mo, and leave it to Dosha to clutch it if he has to. And I think that there's a lot to go over before the major, but I don't think that the move timing was right.
Oh, definitely not. And I mean, you look at Axel, he's a real young guy. They picked him up out of the Russian scene. He's a guy that, you know, has been performing well in his smaller world of events with, you know, I don't remember what he had played before on. I think they picked him up as an ESEA guy. But had some good numbers on that. But, you know, just a pugger, right? So this is his first or second attempt in a you know, an organized, disciplined, I guess, with air quotes around that team. I don't get the Bondic move here. I do and I don't, because I realize the CIS scene is small in terms of talent, and when you have a spot you need to fill, and Bondic becomes available. I guess that's a move that makes sense in some people's mind. I don't know. I've never been impressed with the guy. I don't like the move to Gambit. I think I honestly expected Gambit to disband after Hobbit and Adren left. I expected it to disappear.
I think everybody did.
Can we take a second to state that Axel's previous team was called 5 Balls?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That is where he came from.
Mm-hmm. 16. I think, honestly, I mean, for one, I mean, it was reported. It was not like it was speculation. I mean, you had DK and all these, like, esports journalists reporting that Gambit planned to shut down their team. I mean, that's why you saw Adren and Hobbit and team players like that becoming available, is because it looked like they were planning on shutting down. Then it's like one day they're like, never mind, I don't know if they got funding or whatever happened, but then they just had to start bringing in people. And, I mean, of course, I think they didn't want to take multiple risks. Like, Axel's a big risk. I mean, he's a 16-year-old kid that played on 5 balls. I mean, it's like
that's called the Pentisticle.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they go with Bondic because everybody knows what Bondic is. Bondic's gonna do fine. Okay, he's not gonna ever take over a game, but he's not always gonna drag down the team either. I mean, it's not like they picked up Happy. You know, you're not. So I mean, I think
Bondic has really good mid calls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what allows them to win out against teams like Navi, like when they played at was that Epicenter when they knocked them out in, what was it, group stage?
Yeah, but I think we can probably all agree that Navi played really bad at Epicenter.
Well, they did play bad, but that doesn't take away from, you know.
I think Zeus had a combined 17 frags or something.
I think Electronic and Simple could beat out the entirety of Hellraisers if they wanted to.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not saying, like, you know, obviously Navi played like shit, but I don't think you can take away that Bondic had great mid-round calls and was able to get a read on Navi anyway, leading to easy win on Overpass, which is arguably one of Navi's best.
Oh, exactly.
So I wouldn't take Gambit out of the picture as necessarily the team that's going to go out first. I would say they're more dark horse, though for the minor I would pick Avangard to win it.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you're right with Epicenter. Even though Navi didn't play well, I mean, if you can call against Zeus effectively, I think that's a plus in your book. You mark that down as a win, even if you don't win the match. Because even though Zeus as a player, maybe not one of the, I mean, obviously not one of the better players out there. He actually struggles a lot against top tier talent. But Zeus is mind for the game, I would say, is still definitely there and sharp 90% of the time. I think a lot of his calls are really good, especially as a leader for that. So when when you can beat him, mind for mind like that, that's definitely something to give yourself props for.
I think
go ahead.
Something to take away is also that I think that Gambit's one of those teams that honestly, Navi may not even put the time of day into ever looking any research, any anti-shotting, anything. They just went in there and played their game, and Gambit played better. And I think that when you get to something like this, all these teams have known who they're going to be playing for quite a while, and I don't think that any of them are going to just go in there unless, Namiga shows up at your doorstep. Maybe then you may not do your research, but I mean,
you're not ready for Namiga.
A Vanguard, Gambit, and Spirit. I mean, Windstrike could be an upset team, but I think you pretty much look at a Vanguard, Gambit, and Spirit as the teams that should be competing to take their place in the major qualifier, which is now the major.
Right, and so there's a couple things that over the past, let's look 6-ish months, these teams, obviously we don't get to see as much of these teams as we do some of the other teams because they are CIS, and I would say Europe coverage is definitely better than CIS. But Avangard had a great run through, was it Star Series? Star Series,
they did great.
And then after that, lost to teams like Force. So they've been up and down over the roller coaster. Windstrike, it's the same way. They're beating teams that are decent in their region, and then they go play some Eastern European team and get absolutely smacked. I
do believe that that kind of calls in of how NIP is trying to train to only beat Astralis. It seems that most CIS teams look at the big guys in the CIS region, which at the point would be Navi, Gambit, Avangard, Vega Squadron for that matter. And you can pull up teams like Runtime, who arguably I would pick as a dark horse over any other team in the minor, because you have players like Seized and Starix who are very veteran to know the scene very well, and then you put in a team like Enigma with literal nobodies that we've never even seen before, besides maybe Lollipop. I've seen him on Reddit a few times.
Lollipop used to be Flipside, didn't he?
No.
Maybe at the end of the days when they were an MDL team. I don't think he was ever. I don't know. I think you have a good point with Runtime. I mean, they could be an upset team, but I mean, it's either they're going to get seized, early tenure with Navi when he was developing into what could have been one of their star players to go along with Simple, or they're going to get the end of the year seized that got kicked from Navi, went and played a tournament, played the major with Flipside, then went to Gambit, then was not good enough for Gambit and got kicked. I mean, this is the seas that we have to base most recent results off of, and I think that plus Starks, who has been bouncing back and forth between coaching and playing for the past 2 years. I mean, it's just you'd have to have both those players go off, and I don't know if I can see Seized consistently just running through the CIS qualifier going into the major.
Yeah, definitely. And the other dark horse that I guess I'm just curious to see on on location on LAN is the Simon Gaming team. I don't know if any of you watched the last the third close qualifier with them in it. I think they played. I don't think this is ordered, other than the way I'm looking at it anyway. I don't think it's ordered by the order they got in. I think it's ordered by just the top, the first four, last four. Because I think they were actually in the last qualifier that they got in. But they put the whoop on some serious competitors in that, and some of the other teams that you would expect to see in a CIS minor, they completely knocked out of that tournament. And one of the guys that everybody was talking about, I don't know if any of you saw the clips or not, was Idis Balance. I mean, he was hitting stuff that looked like he was walling, and he was making some good peaks and wall bangs, and the guy was playing out of his mind whether he was cheating or not. Because I mean, even if you're cheating, you still got to hit the shots. But the guy played insanely well and did some nutty stuff. There were a bunch of Reddit clips about him. But I'm excited to see the team on LAN to see if he's actually cheating or not. Because in online, especially in the CIS region, you don't know. I mean, you can see it and you can assume, but you don't know. And maybe the guy just constantly hits things through walls because he just shoots at the walls a lot.
Moment of silence for Forsaken.
Really missed.
Very true.
Rip dead meme.
I'm not very excited about Pro 100. Yes, they get who's back? Kenzer. I just read on HLTV.
Kenzer,
he's
yeah.
healthy.
I'm more excited to see Senya coach. I think that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely, because he just came. Where did he come from?
He's I know he played for Navi back in 1.6 and early Counter-Strike Go.
He was an analyst somewhere, if I remember right.
He is.
Yeah, I think so. Can't think of where.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely an exciting piece.
He
too.
casted at Epicenter and he is season 5.
I think most of us can probably agree that the teams that should come out of this, give any mess ups, because it starts with a best of 1, which CIS, that's anybody's game. But for the most part, I think most of us are probably expecting Avangar and Team Spirit to come out of this. And then the last piece, so as a big Boomich fan, I like to see Winstrike take the 3rd place and get to play in the playoff round of where all the 3rd place teams from the minors get to play. I would actually pick Winstrike over Gambit just because Gambit's had so little time together. Whereas Winstrike's been this roster with, Norbert and World Edit and Waylander. I think they've been together since like September when they dropped everybody right after the London major, and then this team was immediately formed. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, they dropped, sign.
Winstrike has a lot of talent.
They do.
Though. They do.
Yeah.
I think Kvik is a very underrated player as well.
I think their biggest issue is calling. And I don't remember because I always get the two confused. It's either World Edit or Waylander. Whichever one's not the opper is the caller.
Waylander.
So it's Waylander is the caller.
World Edit's the opera, yes.
Yeah, you're right. So I think the biggest lack for them is their calling. Waylander obviously been around for a long time, knows the game, but from what I've seen of them, I only gotten to see I think I saw 8 matches over the course between the forming of this new roster and now, and they're kind of all over the place. So whether that they've been boot camping, I'm sure. I actually follow them on Twitter, so I you get to see the updates every once in a while, but they needed to fix that, whatever that was, if they wanna do well here. And I'm sure Waylander, World Edit, no strangers to the big stage. Boomich obviously was in that first QBF roster that got the roster spots for the next major. When they switched to Winstrike, obviously didn't have the success, and he was the only guy left. So the company obviously sees, or the organization sees, Boomich as an asset, and then they built a team around him basically. So I'm excited to see them where I don't have to listen to a Russian caster. So
I miss Waterfalls, man.
Yeah, me too. I don't know. I hope he gets picked up somewhere because the guy's good on CIS standard. Obviously not. I wouldn't put him top 10 internationally, but the guy can compete with some of the best operas out there, and he's got a mind for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a solid 20 minutes on CIS. Any closing thoughts?
Nope.
Let's go to the more interesting one.
All right. Yeah, you're totally right.
Jeez, if we spent 20 minutes on that.
Dude,
More
we're
interesting.
more than 20 minutes. This is
I
gonna be
have
a long
so
one.
many tabs of CIS things on Liquipedia.
Unfortunately, we're going to talk about the biggest pickup of 2018 because I believe that's when he got picked up. Yam.
Yeah, Yam to Space Soldiers.
Absolutely.
Oh, get off the server, Yam!
So I guess we can just
This
start
is
there.
Olaf's turf.
I think they're gonna hurt Xantares.
Oh, absolutely. He was the core of that group. Even if he didn't show up in the in the server, he was the mindset of that group. I wouldn't say
If he didn't show up, you still knew he was.
It's just the EU minor is very interesting because you see big names that you should be like, okay, they're gonna go. That's it, But it's like,
well, then
either
you go ahead.
you go out with North or Optic or even Vitality, and you're like, these have big names, but these teams also lose to very bad teams quite often. So it's like it's going to be all about who's in form going into this because you have Mouse Sports right around the corner with the re-edition of Stika, who they didn't look great these past few tournaments even with him. but then you have like a team like Instance on the come up and winning events, and it's a bunch of teams that have had very inconsistent results recently.
Right. Well, and the thing is, you look at a team like Mouse Sports. I think they're ranked really high on the world rankings for some reason right now. But I think they always either overperform and kick the crap out of everybody, or they underperform and go out first round. So which Mouse Sports we'll see there, I don't know. Like I'm gonna do my quick rundown of these teams. I'm just gonna go down the line real quick. Wendigo, I really like Wendigo. I think they're less tactical without spelling, but they surprise people all the time, and they did pretty well in EPL. Optic, I'm excited to see Refresh on the roster. I think they still have a long way to go.
Roster now. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think he is the team has a long way to go, but like they're missing one or two things, and that team should be good.
I mean, you're looking at Refresh as a guy who you've never really even heard of before being picked up to sub for C9. That being said, who the hell is the Fragsters? Nobody knows. But you're looking at a guy who can go toe to toe with the likes of, who do they play? FaZe Clan?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go toe to toe with them perfectly fine, and I'm very excited to see how well he plays on Optic.
Yeah. I think that unfortunately for Optic, and it's like I'm gonna assume this is the roster move that happens right after the major, but I think everybody was sitting there and waiting for the move over of Kerrigan. I think that's gonna be the big thing. I think you're gonna probably see minus Yugi for him coming in.
If that move can go through and they can accomplish that team immediately jumps 10 spots.
Yeah, because Kerrigan's
toe to toe with Astralis.
Oh, absolutely. I think that tactically they would be on another level, because Kerrigan is at his best when he is just building into a new team, when they don't have these deep in debt strats. The stuff he started busting out at the end of his tenure with FaZe is something that he did early on with FaZe, and it's what made them win. When he has to quick fire executes because he's still learning how to develop the players around him, that's when Kerrigan's at his best. That's why he can make a team good out of nowhere, which makes me very interested to see how he does with Envy, which we'll discuss at some other time coming up because of the American minors. But for the time being, with the team they have, I really hope that this team doesn't leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth for Refresh going into this. I hope that he's not being held down by the complications that has kept this team at this level. Because getting rid of Nico, which was a very interesting move, because statistically he was not the worst player. He was doing okay. He had his games, he had his bad games, but it was an interesting move to see him being the one taken away when players like Snappy have just been very inconsistent recently.
And I think part of that might have been because they have a partial belief in Yugi, and I think if he fails them here, it's going to be probably end of the line for him, because they've had so many struggles in the past. But, if you look back, just a couple months, you look at Summit, man, do they look good at Summit. Granted, the talent at Summit compared to international tournaments, not great. There was Ghost there and NRG, but I think Big was there too, weren't they?
Yeah, they beat Big.
But they looked really good there against what I would call middle-of-the-road international teams. Teams that can compete at the international level, so they look good there. I think if we don't see Mouse Sports show up, I think Optic's one of the teams that probably puts the whoop on them if they show up like they did at CS, at Summit. I want to see that Optic gaming. I don't think we will.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah. So, and then, it's the same thing with North. If you move on to North. I liked Cadian and Rogue. I hate him in North. I don't like the MSL.
There's a lot of talent available for Denmark that isn't on, obviously, the Astralis lineup. I think that there's players that would fit better on Optic that are on North, and then vice versa. Like I would love to see Carib with Refresh, Valda, and AZ to make a team that's very.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, they're very much. They have a lot of star power, just not being used properly in that scene right now.
I actually think if you plug Kerrigan into North, you get a better outcome than Optic.
Yeah,
because I think Cadian's the wrong kind of IGL for that team, and it really shows. Because you have MSL in there, who's one of the most tactical IGLs out there, and you switch for Cadian, who has kind of switched in style to like a blend of European NA. and it really just doesn't fit. You got guys like KRB, and Valde and AZ and Gade. These are guys that are, I would put them top 20 at least, if not top 10 in their region there, in forms of individual skill. Yeah, I would say the players individually on North should be right below the Astralis guys.
I think that we need to look at modern day North. I think that people get the misconceptions when they look at it, like players like AZ from the G2 phase time or KRB from Astralis, which still every day he's got to look
now though. Like
you're talking. North is literally could be called inconsistent. The Counter-Strike team.
Oh, absolutely.
AZ has never even come relatively close to the form he had with Dignitas or FaZe. KRB definitely. It was an immediate drop. It was the very first tournament through on. But he's been nowhere near how he was when he was being controlled by Kerrigan or Glaive.
That's true. But I think under MSL, you started to see a move towards that direction again. So I'd like to see them.
Valde
Go ahead.
Is our best player.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
That's
is absolutely. Question. I think he is one of the top 10 players in Denmark. I don't know if I'd put AZ in there. KRB may slide in, but I definitely don't think at this current point in time I'd put AZ in the top 10 Danish players when you can pretty much put everybody on Astralis in the top 5. I think you may, or the top 7 if you want to put Valde in there.
I'll stand by the top 20 though. They're definitely up there.
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah,
I think Gade is one of the better. I don't know what I want to call him because he's not really a supportive player, but he plays in a way that does back up his teammates.
And
KRB is the same way.
He's a very automatic style player. For
yeah.
EU.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, and that's kind of how all of those guys are except Valde.
He was a big. It was a big
feels
surprise.
Like you need to have more of a star on the team for that to work out. You need to have somebody that's going to go out and get that done when you have your team setting up for some. Like there is nobody for them to set up. It feels like
right, and I think the move because North is a pretty big organization. Compared to Optic losing money right now, I think if you're North, the play is you see how Refresh plays in this event, and then you maybe try to throw him into that roster in place of like an AZ or I guess AZ or Gade. Although I like Gade on that, I think AZ is probably the player, and then you try to get a Kerrigan. I think that would be a nuts roster. So Gade, Kerrigan, KRB, Valde, and Refresh. I think that would be insane.
There would be a lot of faith into that roster, but I do think it's not necessarily a bad idea to say, well, North's probably not going to do too hot.
No,
I believe that they are capable of great things. Obviously, they won in Stockholm in the previous year. It's Astralis 2-1. They won a best of 3, but that's one every oddball.
Again, and that was MSL and not Cadian.
Yeah.
So. Moving on to Space Soldiers, I think we can probably shrug them aside. I think Santaras, they're probably not going to make much of an impact against these teams.
They got an upgraded firepower with the acquisition of Yam. I think everybody here can confidently say that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's replacing Xantaras.
He's an aimer. Statistically saying
Xantaras still cheats. I don't give a fuck.
Yam best Australian.
I think their biggest problem is Yam comes in a week before the event. All the guys have played pretty horribly in international events as of late, which makes me sad because at the beginning of 2017, I was all aboard the Space Soldiers hype train.
Oh yeah,
dude, they were so fun to watch, and Santaros was popping off. Calyx was playing well, Major was playing well, Paz, and they were all playing good. But there's been a serious decline in how they play, and it's just unfortunate to see. And I think. Yam's gonna have to deal with some of that internationality, and obviously he's the international. He's the outsider playing into that group.
Well, how does he fit into the roster? Obviously he's an AWPer and he's an IGL, right?
Wait, will it be like an Alu on Nip kind of situation? Will they be calming in Turkish, and then he'll be?
Well, he's part Turkish.
Oh, okay, that may help them because his flag is Australia, of course. So.
Yeah, he's Australian Turkish.
I don't know if he speaks it or not, though.
He may. He may be at Tarek levels of
Understanding basics.
knowing the language. Yeah, he may be able to get some basic communication, but I don't think he'll be able to communicate.
I don't know how he's gonna fit into that roster.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because
he's just a file-in
there. So
I think he just got filed in because
is
they were
he even set to go for the major? Like, is he set to go? Because they have Despa as their reserve player, and I don't know how that's gonna.
Yeah, because he got his visa filed because he's ready to.
Yeah, you have to play with the team you play with in the minor.
Yeah.
Either that or your coach has to step in. As of January 1st, whatever your roster was.
So I'm just assuming it's going to be Despa at the major.
I'm not sure. Because they only need 3 out of the 5 through this, but they had to register the roster ahead of time in the minor.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, you have to play with whoever you have in the minor, unless you're gonna have your coach sub in. That's why you've seen players not be able to bring in a random 5th during the major qualifier.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't have faith in the roster in this minor. I think if Mousesport shows up, it's a definite no for Space Soldiers. If Wendigo shows up, it's a definite no. If ENCE shows up, it's a definite no. So there are just so many teams that when they play at their best are way better than Space Soldiers at their best right now.
Yeah, I think that at this point we can move over to probably the most exciting team going into this with the most exciting player, probably one top 5 most exciting players of the major, and ZywOo, and Vitality.
Okay.
I'm so ready for that. I don't know if I understand get rid of Happy at some point in time. I mean, his entirely was just not fitting with the team, so Alex is not a bad pickup.
I like Alex there. I like the noggin that Alex brings. I still don't think the team, because I mean, if you look at their last games, if ZywOo doesn't top, they lose. And I mean,
RPK isn't a smart player.
That's true.
I don't care what you say. He's a bot. And Shox it wasn't Shox. It was Smiths who literally had to teach him how to play Counter-Strike Global Offensive back in the day when they brought him on to play for what was it? It wasn't Titan. It was.
I don't remember.
Who are they? It starts with a V. I don't remember.
My French knowledge is pretty mediocre, but I mean, you got guys like Apex and MBK in
Very
there.
games.
There you go. Yeah, very. So like, MBK and Apex, good players a couple years ago. Right now, pretty lacking. RPK, don't have a whole lot of faith in him. Alex, I liked him on LDLC, but I don't think he's calling for this one. I think MBK still is. And then, I mean, everybody has faith in ZywOo, but against teams of this caliber, I struggle to see them going through. I think they'll make exciting games, but...
I mean, it's all depicted on, like, Apex and RPK, what they can do. Because ZywOo, he's proven at LAN. I mean, this guy is the same player he is offline, online. I mean, or online, offline, rather.
Right.
So it's going to be more about these veterans, like... In BK, I mean, you don't expect much from him, especially with him being the caller right now. But, I mean, if RPK can go back to, like, E-League Season 2 form before, he got sick and was dealing with all of that.
Yeah.
But he was even playing out of his mind while sick. Or we can get, like, Apex of early G2. Then this is a team that could compete.
Absolutely.
With these teams. Do I see them taking on, like, a FaZe or Mousesports will probably be the blockade for all of them because, I mean, that's a top 4 team that's in the EU open qualifier.
Okay.
Or close qualifier.
I thought you were just going to leave it at top 4, and I was like...
No. I mean, like, that's insane. They have to play against a top 5 team in the world just to get into the major.
Yeah. It's hard for me to see it, because so many of their games have been so reliant on ZywOo. But, maybe the heart just wasn't there for NBK and Apex. Guys that I liked on G2, and I don't know why they got benched. But
no, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm calling it that all of their games are going to be blowouts.
You think so?
I think so.
So, whether they're blowouts or not, I think we can probably agree they're not going to go far as long as these other teams show up.
We'll get a good test immediately. Their very first games against Optic. I mean, that should set the tone for the rest of this minor.
Yeah, and see if they get the ball rolling, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, if they don't have even if they lose and it's competitive, then there's still a chance. But I mean, if they get blown out by a team like Optic, then for one, Optic looks great going into this, and I think you can pretty much count Vitality out there. They may get, a good win, an easy win off of like a Valiance or a Space Soldiers, but I don't see them beating any of the other 5 teams.
Yeah.
If they lose to Optic here.
So speaking of Valiance, let's move there. What a roller coaster that team has been over the last couple
absolutely.
months. So I don't even remember who they dropped. But Nexa, Esperanto, and Ottend come over from Imperial, which has ceased CS operations.
Mm-hmm.
And you plug those guys into Hunter and Letney. So now you have Ottend picking up the op. Esperanto is just doing Esperanto things. I think is Hunter calling for this team? I don't remember right off.
No idea.
Esperanto looks like a gremlin.
Kinda. But I mean, do we have high hopes for this team? I don't really. I like Esperanto. I know most people don't. I like him as a player because of the things I've seen him do. I watch a lot of the tier 2 groups just to see who's coming up, but I don't think there's a team around him to do it. And the guy gets frustrated when they don't do well, and he's not an attitude helper at all.
No, I don't think there's anybody here that you can say is a
Well, arguably, I
player.
feel like he's better than everybody on that team. I think statistically that fits, and I think that he could fit way better in a CIS area than he would in an EU team.
I mean, look at the roster. I mean, look at somebody like Nexa. I mean, you're talking a year or two removed from his short stint with Renegades. You're looking. This is a team, unfortunately, of Hunter, 2 players I've never heard of, Nexa, who way over the hill, and then Esperanto, can be something big or something very small. I mean, he's depending on you never really see him play against this tier of competition that he's gonna have to play in the minor. This isn't even the major yet. He's gonna have to play against these teams that have competed and won tier 1 tournaments over the past 6 months. So
right. I mean, if you go like guy for guy on these teams, if you just look at Oppers, so you look at Ottend, and Esperanto has in multiple games in the past taken over the op from Ottend because he doesn't believe in Ottend. But if you look at the maps that you assume will be in this pool, like you'll probably see a lot of Mirages, you probably see a lot of Caches, probably a lot of Infernos, right? Maps that are important to have to be able to win op duels. You're gonna have Ottend versus Oscar. Maybe Ottend versus Chris J if they get doubles up. Ottend versus Poison. I wouldn't take him in that one. Ottend
Chris
versus
J is so much better than Oscar.
Snappy, I believe, is the Optics Opper, right? Yep. I wouldn't take him in that one.
Yugi is Optics Opper.
Is it Yugi?
Oh yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah,
IGL Optics?
Yugi's an IGL?
No.
I believe
Snappy's the IGL.
Is it?
Yugi's the Opper.
I'm so okay.
Yeah, you and I had him backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like I wouldn't take him there. I think Yugi has done well as an Opper for them. Ottend versus Cadian, that's a big nope. Ottend, is it Paz over in Space Soldiers? I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen him play.
Is it?
They double.
I think they double a lot. It's usually Calyx or the other.
Either way,
I think it
Paz.
depends on the map because I've seen Calyx just shit all over top teams on cobblestone.
Unfortunately, something we didn't point out, but for Space Soldiers is when they had their miracle runs, like in the past majors, they had cobblestone, which was actually a solid map for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's gone, and they've shown multiple times they can't win on Mirage.
Nope.
Yeah.
But then you get Ottend versus Alu. That's a big nope. Ottend versus Zaiwu. Absolutely not. So I mean,
I'm excited for Ints, man.
Let's just move straight to Ents because I think we're done talking about Valiance.
Yeah.
That's it.
Ents.
No.
Ints has some talent right there.
One of the most fundamental teams I've ever seen in my life.
It blows me away that you've seen these players. I mean, look at Seized. Alu said, "I'm gonna go make an all-finish team, and we're gonna go and compete." And he was fine. He was like, he went in there with the intention of, I just get to go and play Counter-Strike with a bunch of people from my area. I get to live back home. And then he made a team, and a team was built around him that is competing and winning tournaments. I mean, that's like, it never happens that a player that you would say is on the downside of his career, after phase, it's like, where do you go from there? That's your peak.
All I'm saying is if Sunny were to join Ints, that's a major winning team. Don't at me.
Okay.
I don't know. I think Sergey does. I mean, so if you want to talk about 16-year-olds, we talked about Axel earlier. He's untested, I guess. Sergey has been tested. I mean, you look at this guy. What was the last? They played Star Series. Were they at Epicenter? I don't remember. I want to say
No.
yes. They weren't. They were at
I don't know.
a Russian event of some sort of caliber like that. But they've played some decent sized events. They played a couple of Dream Hacks, and the guy shows up constantly. I mean, this is a 16-year-old who has shown he's capable at the top level. Has gone head to head against some of the guys that you would put in that top 30 player ranking, and does well. You got guys like Ariel who play well. X7 is kind of all over the place, but generally pretty well. And Alexi B is a big brain in the scene, and I think as disciplined as they play, I would not be surprised if they make it through this and then go beat people up in the legend stage. But again, as a team that they've been playing their DreamHack Opens and their Star Series, this is the biggest thing they've played in by far. I mean,
It'll be interesting to see if the nerves get to Sergey.
That's what I gotta know, because I mean, DreamHack, you're playing in front of like maybe 8,000, 10,000 people depending on where you are. This is gonna be, and it's in Poland, which is one of the hardest Counter-Strike.
You also gotta add in that I don't believe there's crowds at.
The minors, yeah, you're right. They're closed.
I think that
So
they're just played. So I mean, it'll be offline Counter-Strike, but I mean, it'll be the same as every other basically like group stage for any tournament they've ever been in. It'll be offline, but no crowd, just them together in a room playing. And I think that there's a lot of players in here. There's a lot of very good young and upcoming players that going into the major qualifier, you could start seeing maybe nerves would get to them. Like, no, this will be the biggest stage that Zywoo's played on. This will be the biggest stage that, Sergey's played on. It'll be the biggest stage that Refresh has played on. There's a lot of these young, talented players that are going to be experiencing this light for the first time if they make it through.
It's kind of the clash of, old world versus new world, I guess. I mean, you got guys on mouse boards that have been here for 5+. You got guys on Optic that have been around for a while, and guys on North that have been around for a while. And then you got guys coming up like Valiance is like half and half. Vitality is old guys plus Zywoo. I mean, it's going to be a clash of styles. All right, any closing thoughts on the EU one before we wrap this one up?
We didn't talk about Wendigo.
We didn't? Oh, I like Wendigo. I think, again, I think their disciplined style. I don't know if you guys saw during the last minor, they played Team Spirit, and they won Pistol, and immediately all bought FAMASas. And the game plan for that game, the analyst broke it down afterwards. And the game plan, and they executed it really well, was to economically choke Team Spirit the entire game. And I think Team Spirit had 2 full buys in that entire game. So like Wendigo would like get them almost to max loss and then let them win a round, because they would have a ton of money. And then Wendigo's buy would be like half-assed because they got half money, or I mean, Team Spirit's buy would be like half-assed because they got half money, and then they would beat them again. And like that was the kind of Wendigo that we saw with Spellin, who's now gone. I think Ships is now calling for them, and they've definitely turned into a more, it's one of those teams that I would say would probably play well in the NA. They've gone a little more loose, and kind of let their guys do, try to make plays and then execute off of those. So it's not as fun of a Wendigo to watch in my mind as it used to be, but I think they can compete. They're definitely not a team I would pick as a dark horse to beat like an Astralis or anything like that. I just don't think they're tactical enough anymore. But they're winning more. They added Poison halfway through EPL, and they continued to win in EPL. I think they went 50% in EPL.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, as a team nobody really knows anything about. I like Wendigo. All right, closing statements. Thanks for watching. We ended up with 45 minutes of runtime on this one. We still got one more to do, and also an ad read. It's
Yeah.
content night here in the Splatter offices. So if you enjoyed the podcast and you enjoyed the content and us talking about it, go ahead and like and subscribe to get some more content like this. We do like to talk about the pro scene, as one day we maybe see ourselves there. But also to see updates on us, get some gameplay footage. I know some games, the Venomous League game has to go up. And the open games will go up as they come out, and then also our Frag movie, which is coming out soon. So stay tuned for that. Go ahead and like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter at DRSplatter. That's my personal Twitter where all the news comes out. All right, we'll catch you next time. See you later.